Now, let me say one other thing, which is I know that there's kind of pressure on staff to bring good news to the City Commission. You're trying to bring something to them which you are going to show that you have under control. But it just could be the case that there are insufficient funds for all of our high-risk infrastructure, and I just feel like that needs to be known. So these comments are in the nature of a clarification to what I said at the last meeting. Unless anybody has any comments on that, we'll move on. Oh, I see Marilyn has joined us, so I'm going to hand over the gavel to Marilyn. And you're welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question, Peter, on your comment. Did we make
I'm
that
good.
recommendation to the city commission, or what do you want to do with that?
Jackie, turn your microphone on.
I'm sorry. What do you want to do? Do we need to make that? You need to make that recommendation to the city commission, or what?
Well, I feel that we've pretty fully explored trying mechanisms for making this more directly obvious to the Commission. And we have also asked staff at this point, and I think that we're in the hands of staff, and I trust that they're going to do a good job because they've made a start on it with the list that we had last time. But I'm just anxious to reconcile the various reports that exist and the examinations that have been done on our infrastructure by consultants with the level of funding. So we do not get into the situation again, as happened 8 years ago, where we had $1 billion of infrastructure needs and less than 200 million over the next 5 years to fulfill those needs. And that was never really clear to anybody. So I just feel like the staff, and we've talked about on this current board, that the staff, the Public Works Director, should bring to the City Commission a list of projects, high priority projects, and after all, what's more high priority than something that's been identified as high risk, with the funding source, if there is one, or if they have not identified funding, then they should say so. So the Commission knows that if there's a gap between what they are allocating and what the needs are. And I think we have to rely on the staff now to get that done.
Peter, in following up on what you were saying, there's always going to be a gap between the needs and the funding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, to me, it's not so much an issue of trying to identify that it will exist. And the question I think that's most relevant is, given that there is not enough money to do all the things that we need to do, what is the priority? Okay, have we got the priority correct? Are we moving those projects with the highest risk first, or is there some reason we're doing something else? Now, they have always said that there is a hierarchy. There's and correct me, guys, if I'm getting it remembering it incorrectly. The hierarchy is what's broken and needs to be fixed on an emergency basis. Then there's federal mandates, state mandates. Omar, perhaps you could refresh our memories on what that sort of list is in the priorities. That might help this discussion.
Yeah, so we're working on that list, and we should have it ready by the next meeting. So we're gonna have the list of projects that Peter is talking about, and we're gonna come with all the priorities and projects that are not funded that we need money for. So we're gonna have that.
Good. So we're making progress.
Yeah, when you create this list, it should be a living list, so that as we complete something, then something that should be added to the list, or even if we don't complete it, but it becomes high priority, it should be added to the list. And from you, and you can say to us, oh, we've added 2 more items to the priority list so that we'll be on top of things. Because right now, I don't know what's priority and what is not.
So we can do an update every so often of that list
Appreciate
and
it.
add projects or, take projects out or put complete on it
Appreciate it.
like that. Okay, no problem.
Peter?
And don't forget, Marilyn and Omar, that the consent order projects are only priorities because we got forced to address these things by the state. So obviously they're priorities now, but they were priorities 8 years ago. One thing. Second thing, I agree with everything you said, Marilyn, but don't forget, the previous group of us recommended to the commission that they set aside 8 to 10%, I think it was, of the general fund for capital needs. And the commission has never agreed that.
No,
So-
they have not.
So to the extent that there's a funding gap, it's because we have not succeeded in, well, I hesitate to say adequately drawing to their attention, but they have still not necessarily fully recognized the need that a previous group of the ITF put in front of them.
Actually, I agree with what you're saying, that we have tried very hard to get them to move in that direction, and they have not done that. But even if they did that, Peter, even if there was a set aside every year of 7% for, allocated for capital projects, they'd run through that 7%, boom, boom, boom. Again, there's always more need than there is money. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to their attention. Because every year when they see that the CIP program in this, it's full of projects and, it's got lots of numbers and God knows how many people actually dig as deep into it as some of us have done. And you get the sense that, okay, everything's under control. We got a spreadsheet, everything's under control. That's a lot of money we're spending. But what we need to impress upon them to address the issue that you're concerned about is there's never enough money. And even though we're doing all of these things, there's this group of things that needs to get done.
Mhm.
So, Roosevelt?
Yes, and I think when we asked for that 10% and we had that joint meeting, they didn't agree to the 10%, but they did not put anything on the table to saying, well, if it was 5%, we would have. So maybe we should ask staff to see if there is a level of set aside that they would agree to. And then we would go from there. And then on top of that, and I know what you're trying to create. You're trying to create a dedicated source of funding for these projects. I know that's what you're trying to get to, and it is hard, but there should be something that we can rely upon and say, well, we know we have this much money coming in next year. So we can ask that this project or that project be put on the list by staff. And just ask staff to just look into it and see if there's something they will agree to.
How much money would 5% be?
Not a lot.
I mean, it wouldn't be
Not a
enough
lot.
to
I
replace.
think it was,
In relationship to the need, it's not a lot. I think we want it as sort of a matter of principle. You'll have a house, you put aside a certain amount of money every year, like all the condominiums and homeowners do. And they have resisted that. And I don't know whether it's 4% or 5% or 3%, they have resisted that. How many times can you say it? Michael, you're here today, right? Thank you. How about your group? The Budget Advisory Board has been trying very hard to identify a source of, not more money, but at least identify a source of money. And you were unsuccessful as well, I believe. Can you tell us a little about it?
Microphone. You just push the button.
Hold it down a little bit,
Yeah, no, I am.
and the light will come on.
It's not very
It's on
bright.
now, yeah, it's on.
that's better.
Yeah, I mean, the budget's really thin. We were lucky last year because there were federal funding from COVID that helped bridge the deficit and the budget shortfall. So there's just not a lot of margin based on current revenue streams.
And next year, I understand is going to be, you know, the COVID money is gone, has been
Right, right.
expended.
We won't be able to rely on that, right.
Right, and, you know, what we rely on every year is an increase in the assessed value of all the property to
Right.
give us a little extra money, and that goes bing, bing, bing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's why, I mean, the Budget Advisory Board is, you know, openly exploring the idea of increasing the millage rate for the first time in ages. Because we know that, I mean, you know, unless you can identify some other source, unless there's, you know, some other intervening event, you know, that, I mean, maybe through the new federal funding with the infrastructure bill, you know, there are opportunities, you know, but based on, you know, heretofore, there just really isn't a lot of margins, like I said. So you have to look for a new revenue source by way of the millage rate.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, certainly.
With what you just said? I think the only way that we're going to get money is to show the problem. Isn't that how all government works? There's no money until you have a problem.
Right.
So if we're able to put the infrastructure needs constantly in front of the city commission and show them what's happening and what we need, then I think it's going to help drive their consideration of increasing a millage rate, because this 5 and 10% does nothing for our infrastructure needs. It's not enough money.
Well, I mean, look, I don't sit, I'm not a member of city staff, so I don't do this on a day in, day out basis. But I would think that not only do you need to identify the problem, but I think that the real way to be able to secure that type of money, whether through some sort of federal funding, is that you've got to present an answer. You need a project. You know, it's not just saying, oh, we got a problem, but it's like, you know, here's what we think's the solution.
I can't hear you.
Right, and Michael, in a minute, on the agenda today is an update on the city's strategy for getting federal infrastructure funds. We've already identified that as that's where the money is going to be in the next couple of years, to match up of a magnitude to match up on the scale that we need. We hope, because even now, from the enterprise funds, there's not a dedicated amount of money towards capital improvements. It's whatever is left over. Correct me if I'm wrong, Omar. You know, first we have to run the system, then we have to pay the bonds, and then we're lucky every year we get left over, traditionally maybe like $20 million and the range of $20 million left over, and then we were giving that over to the expense budget, which we're no longer doing, thank God. Okay, so it's not like even from the enterprise funds, there's a set amount of money. It's, you know, you got to run the system, and then you're lucky you got an amount of money left. So again,
Right.
funding is always the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you need a new, you know, a lot of the, I guess, the enterprise funds, I mean, these like the water, sewer, and all these funds are really, you know, self-sustaining, but I mean, they're not supposed to generate profits, right? They're to cover costs, to maintain the level of service. And so, you know, what you really need is you need a new injection of investment, you know, just like you do when cities and places are initially built. There's an injection of equity, you know, and then over time, you know, with operating costs and you know, it maintains itself that way. But in order to grow and accommodate growth, I mean, you really need a new injection.
And the injection of funds that we've had that has made the crisis less of a severe crisis is bonds.
Yeah.
That's the injection of the funds that we've had. We had $200 million for the consent orders, $200 million for the sewers, $100 million for the police station, $200 million for the parks. If we hadn't had the injection of those bonds, what?
Who knows where we'd be?
We wouldn't be. Oh, and don't forget the penny sales tax. We've been moving projects over to the penny sales tax funding.
Right.
So we've been very fortunate that the citizens of Fort Lauderdale have agreed and supported the additional funding through the bonds. Roosevelt, you were.
Yes. Is there anyone, I guess I ask you, that is working with either state and or the federal government to tap into some of those supposedly infrastructure funds that was approved in that first bunch of money?
That's on the agenda. Can we hold that?
Okay, then I hold it.
Yeah.
Then I hold it.
Okay. I assume we're in general discussion right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So since I raised this, let me just say, by way of a conclusion, the situation is nowhere near as bad as it was 7, 8 years ago. This commission has made huge strides, there's no question about that. And I'm pretty confident we won't have problems of the same magnitude as we had before. And the current commission has diligently addressed this. I don't want to make this sound overly negative, but I just want to avoid slipping back into old habits.
Okay, and,
Yes,
Yes.
thank you, Madam
Ralph,
Chair.
you had,
Yes, I think the first order of business is, of course, financial is important, but we need to establish the priorities on the various infrastructures, and this will be a variable over time. In other words, initially when we started in 2017, the sanitary sewer gravity mains took the spotlight.
that's right.
And now we're seeing that the 5-ash water treatment plant is now becoming more into the spotlight because of its, the old plant is going to have to be upgraded or replaced, and that's going to be another thing. And of course, maybe the storm drainage starts coming in and taking a higher priority as well. But so it's important that we keep focused on the various critical infrastructures and over time, because their position as far as being of their priority will change over time.
Yes, indeed. And as I recall at our last meeting, Alan Dodd said the highest priority for them is the I&I, because if they don't keep increasing the capacity of the sewage treatment plant, every time you get a new development, it gets higher and higher.
Well-
The only thing that drops that number down is I&I.
Well, and exactly, because the I&I study not only is just impacting the gravity sewers, but it's negatively impacting the pump stations, their impeller blades, of course, the force mains, as we well know, and don't forget the added flow into the George T. Lomar wastewater treatment plant. That's, it's 30 to 50% depending on rain, which is an indicator that the I&I is not close to being finished.
Yeah. Maybe, things like that, maybe what we ask the staff to do is to present us a component-specific report on occasion. How are we doing on the I&I? How much have we spent? How much is budgeted? How much more do we need? What's the importance of it to keep that sewage treatment plant below the permitted capacity levels? And I'm just thinking out loud now, and then, because as Roosevelt said, things change. And so they want to focus on the water treatment plant. We're going to be doing a lot of focusing on the water, not we, somebody's going to be doing a lot of focusing on the water treatment plant. And I'm afraid it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room, because now we're talking about big numbers. And, we got to be concerned that other priorities don't get sort of lost. Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, and the water treatment plant, water is critical for survival of the human race. That's just it, if the storm drain flood,
It says.
that's one thing, but, so there's a lot of components that develop the priority of each infrastructure. And so that's, how critical is it to have this completed? Obviously water we need.
Mhm.
But we can't have the sewers going kaput either. So
Right.
it takes a lot of thought process. It's just not one item. There's multiple items to each infrastructure that have to be looked at as far as what determines their order of priority.
Okay, any other discussion on this particular item before we move?
So I have a question
Yes,
here.
yes. Sir.
So there's a lot of opinions, but what's the ask here? What are we asking for? Because I haven't heard that in a very precise statement yet. What are we asking for?
Well, as a general discussion, I apologize for being late, but I assume that when Peter brought this up, it was in relationship to the top 10 projects. Okay, we have asked the staff to prepare for us, and hopefully for the commission as well, what are the top 10 projects in the next budget cycle, okay?
even if,
Omar says they're working on that?
Yes, he does.
and even if, and particularly if, they have not identified funds for them. Because
Okay, so to that point, so we got this document that was part of the package of support materials that listed water and sewer bond expenditure summary.
Yeah.
And the other was the consent order project's financial report summary.
We get that every 6 months or so.
I beg your pardon?
I think the staff prepares that every 6 months or so. By law, by the consent order, they have to provide this information to the state, and they
Oh,
bring it to us.
Wonderful. I mean, so it's the first time I've seen it, of course.
No, well, naturally, you're newbie.
So just as an example then, on the consent order projects, talk about I&I, it's so far 69% of what was budgeted has been spent. And 75 on the master plan, 99 on sewer basin, 81 sewer force main, 7% on stormwater. That's pretty low, in my opinion, compared to the others.
Yeah,
So
but
I would like to ask a question.
Sure.
Perhaps Omar can answer. He's standing up. Why is that so low compared to the others?
Okay, so the consent order was for wastewater treatment, for only sewer. That was the consent order. So in some of these projects, there is a part of a stormwater project that includes part of the sewer project. So that's why it's that low. But this consent order is based only for sewer. So
Well, why does it say stormwater then?
because some of the projects, there is a stormwater that interacts with some of the projects that we're doing on sewer projects. So some of those projects were added to the consent order to finalize the whole, to do two projects in one. That's why.
I'm sorry, but I don't think that's a good approach.
You don't think what?
I don't think that's a good approach. Keep them separate so we know how how the funds are being spent.
Okay. I'm
mean,
hearing you.
Omar, I just don't understand why, you said you're combining them I don't get it.
So, the consent order is only for sewer, right? That's the consent order.
Okay, so then it says stormwater, so that there's a problem right there, in my opinion.
Right, so some of the sewer projects, there was a component on those projects that was stormwater that we added to those projects. And that's something that we're doing with FDEP, that we volunteer to do the storm projects because they're related to that specific sewer project.
So they're like a subset of the sewer project?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So why don't we divide that, or at least name it correctly, that this is a sewer problem and that the stormwater is, section A or part A or something?
In the consent order, that's the way that is specified.
Peter, you want to comment on this?
so basically, as I see it, on the consent order projects, which were, as I said previously, forced on us by circumstances, when you are tearing up the road to install new sewer pipes, it doesn't make a lot of sense to not also address some stormwater issues if they are there as well. The thing that is not captured in that part of the spreadsheet there is that the commission has awarded or got a $200 million bond to address stormwater issues throughout the city. And that is not, as I understand it, reflected in what you're looking at. What we also need, Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, for the future is some updating of the status of that $200 million bond
And
where it stands.
that's from the Hazen report, is that correct? Based on what the Hazen report?
Yes, the Hazen people put together the city's stormwater master plan, part 2. Well, they did part 1 and then they did part 2, and they're working on part 3. The part 2 is so present, Peter, because I was just going to ask that question. How's it going with the $200 million stormwater
So
bond?
where's that?
That's not there. That's not there.
Okay.
That's entirely different. You see, the way the city.
Why wouldn't, if we get information, water and sewer bond expenditure, Why wouldn't we get something on the stormwater bond?
We do.
Yes, we should. We should.
Good.
You're absolutely right. And that's what we need because, again, it gets to the priority thing. We were very much into the stormwater stuff a year and a half ago. I mean, it was the hottest topic here, okay? Aside from the INI. And when the city made when the plan was prepared and the city made the commitment to go out for the $200 million bonds, they actually even borrowed money as a gap until they got the $200 million, okay? That sort of fell by the wayside because we figured, okay, we got that covered. A year and a half later, I don't even know if if we've actually gone out for the bond. Have we, Oscar, Omar, have we gone out for that bond yet?
Yeah, and we're gonna get it on October 2023.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's the
So,
update. The money's coming in.
I want to clarify something to him because not all the consent order projects for the wastewater are on that 200 million bond. There is other funding for some of those projects too. So not all those projects are from that bond. A lot of them are also from the CIP every year. So that's, you understand?
No, I don't.
Okay.
So the way the projects are funded for the consent order, some of them are funded from the $200 million bond, and some are funded from the CIP. So there's different funding sources where these projects are.
And most of the stormwater projects in design, et cetera, are not shown there at all.
Yeah.
So there
but
is that-
I think
yeah.
I see an issue here. I see an issue here. And that's the issue. Every time a new member gets appointed to the board, they're at an incredible disadvantage because they have to absorb now a huge amount of information that we have all been wading through. So can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I would like to sit with you and perhaps with Omar, if we can do that. Can two of us sit together?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
Nice
No,
idea.
okay, that's too, well, perhaps
I can
you
meet
and-
with Omar if he's open to meeting with me.
You can, Madam Chair, if you advertise.
Oh, no, we're not gonna, okay.
Well, she
We're
just
gonna
did.
we have to give the staff an opportunity to sit down, and actually, we should make it mandatory that the staff sits down with all the new members who need it, who want it. I mean, other people have a background and, know this stuff. But, it's like when I was on the city commission in New York City. I walked in, and I happened to know all this stuff, and I didn't need a briefing, but there were other people who were, ordinary citizens who were appointed. They didn't know up from down. And so we had the staff sit down and, 2-3 hours, as long as the appointee wanted, and go over the, procedures, background, which is the budget, this, So if you would like to do that, I would certainly recommend that the staffs make some time, even in these COVID
So
times.
should I reach out to Mr. Dodd or contact you directly, Omar?
Why don't we go directly to the top? Why don't we go to Alan?
Yeah, hey,
I'll reach out to Alan.
we can also put a presentation if you want for everybody to see how the consent order is funded, if that helps.
Well, at some point, yes, that would be good because we're reaching pretty much the end of the consent order. So we should have a sort of a roundup of how everything went.
Yeah.
But I think this is very important because we're going to have probably there will be new people in
Yeah.
February.
Yeah.
Some of us may still be here, but there may be new people. And this is something that we want to deal with. So let's get started on that.
And we can add those stormwater projects,
Yeah.
how they were added, what was the mechanism and all that,
Sure.
okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ruth.
Let me just say to James that when you don't compare the amount of money spent per project, because it's not relevant. Some projects we started up here and it was a whole year and a half before we started on something else. And we still have projects. I don't know if you've seen the list of projects that is listed under this infrastructure task force business. Some of it we haven't even touched yet. So you can't look at it and say, well, you haven't spent any money on this, but you spent millions on that. So that's what that priority list will do. It'll have us spending not the right amount of money, but as much money we possibly can on the projects that mean the most to the people of the city of Fort Lauderdale.
I understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
I think that and I don't know, I don't want to tell people to redo spreadsheets, but I understand what you're saying, in that some of these projects started 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever, and so they're already at 90% or whatever.
My
Stormwater jumped out at me because I think I made it clear at the last.
Yes, you did.
that Stormwater is important to me personally, from where I live in my neighborhood. And
But
when
we
I saw-
also-
When I saw that it was so low, I kind of thought, well, what the hell?
Perfectly understandable.
Why are we so behind on it?
Right.
So now I understand better. Thank you, Omar, for explaining.
But
Just to
neighborhood-
clarify one more thing.
Yeah.
The stormwater bond, we haven't received the full 200 million yet. We're only working on 2 projects, which is 70 million. So that's another reason why we haven't had a lot of stormwater completed yet. Okay?
Okay. All right, that was the
Okay.
$70 million bridge loan.
Okay,
That-
thank you.
That was brilliant. Okay, have we talked about this enough, and can we get into the regular agenda?
Yes, just one other thing under member comments. If any other members are interested, I would like to get a presentation or an update on the city's smart water meter program at a future meeting.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
another project that we were very hot and very much involved in, or was very important to us. Again, I'm sure progress has been made, but again, there's so many projects that, we could be doing progress report updates on these things like, 3 and 4 at a meeting. So yes, I agree with you. That was a very important one in terms of water conservation. Yes, okay,
So Marilyn, before we move on,
sure.
I have 2 more things I want to bring up. So on the city commission last night, there were a couple of items that I just wanted to find out in terms of the Infrastructure Task Force Board, where we are, or how do we get involved, or were we involved, et cetera. The first one was on motion approving the agreement for repairs at 5 Ash Water Treatment, plant valve replacement. Is that something that comes to us before it goes to the city commission? or
No,
what
no.
is-
Those are those are sort of ongoing maintenance items. They have to
Okay.
replace the valves. We have made a determined effort not to get involved in the, minutia of the operations of these of public works projects.
So that motion then would come up from the department, Public Works Department?
Correct.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then the other was the resolution urging the Florida Department of Transportation to consider the tunnel as the future of commuter rail service.
Now, that's a good one.
It's
That's a
gonna,
good
I
one.
think that's gonna come to us.
I was going to
I-
bring that up
it
too.
was-
You were? Jackie was going to bring that up, too.
Well, we can talk about it, I don't know, maybe that's part of new business, but I just wanted to know if we were involved in any way at all in developing the language or the verbiage or whatever associated with the resolution, because it was quite a heavy-duty discussion last night.
The answer to your question is no. We had not been asked to be involved in that. Not that we have not thought about it and talked about it, but the commission has not specifically asked us to opine on it. That
Okay.
does not mean that at some point we will not opine on it. Jackie, you
Yeah.
wanted to talk about it?
We will.
Well, I
Yes.
think that, I don't know what the rest of the board members think about a tunnel versus a bridge. But I do think if we were able to have a short discussion and offer support for a tunnel, that'd be extremely helpful.
Well, are we in one of those circumstances where we're in the period,
The meeting is on the 18th, the next meeting.
The next, no, I was just asking about the tunnel. That's not one of the ones that's a
don't-
question of unsolicited proposals.
No.
That's a proposal by FDOT to do it this way or that way or the other way.
Yeah,
So we're not constrained.
right, and I think the issue is what's going to be best for our city. There's a lot of talk about it, so I don't know if we have enough information. I do, but I don't know if how the rest of you feel, but it'd sure be great if we could support the mayor and support the tunnel.
You would think the mayor would have come to us and asked us for that, but he didn't. But
So that's okay, I don't want to punish him.
We shouldn't. No, I don't either. But yeah, I personally, I think that this is a major infrastructure project.
It is.
Yeah,
Thank you, Madam.
Ralph.
Yeah, there has been discussion. Obviously, I got involved with that discussion offering the pros and cons of the tunnel concept. Yes, you have to look at the environment in which they're making a comparison from Las Vegas, where the tunnel is, there's a tunnel that's being used as an example of what can be done in South Florida. And, you know, they're saying, well, we have an aquifer the same as the Las Vegas area, and that's not true.
Let me
Not
just
to get
interrupt you for a
not to
second.
get too technical for the non-technical or non-engineers, but here we have an unconfined aquifer. Basically, it's an underground river. In Las Vegas, they have a confined aquifer, which is basically like underground reservoirs. And they may have water coming from the mountains that melt, come down, but once it gets into the desert areas and everything, then it's, and I worked out in California and involved with confined aquifers. And so they're basically like a reservoir underground. And, but there's other things that I've already listed. And if you go through the backup information that I think the city provides newcomers coming in, you'll see the pros and cons. And there's geology that's different here than it is at Vegas. But the important thing is to make sure we have problems trying to keep the groundwater from coming into our gravity sewers. And, you know, obviously that's a concern that if you put a tunnel down there of a rather large proportion, what kind, you know, what are the potential of having intrusion into that tunnel? Not to mention the salt water that's prevalent in that area from downtown to the beach, which is what's being proposed. Typically, in pretty much all tunnels, you have conditions such as if you have electric failures, if you have fires, which is deadly, are you going to provide escape routes if the system shuts down so that the passengers can escape? They don't want to have, you know, so there's a lot of things that have to be looked at before you just say, yeah, it's a good idea because, you know, it'll relieve some of the traffic. But it doesn't look like it's going to relieve too much of the traffic.
I just
And
want to say something. I think
may-
we're talking about two different
Wait
things.
a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the FDOT proposal of going through downtown with a tunnel versus
What are
a
you talking
bridge.
about?
Yeah.
You're talking more about the Las Vegas
No.
No, I'm
Tesla
not.
tunnel.
What I'm saying, and maybe you can't hear me from the acoustic here.
But I don't.
What I'm saying is that there's been a lot of comparison between Las Vegas and what we're doing here, which is, you know, and they're saying it's the same. It's not the same.
Okay, and I'm not a technical person. Obviously, you're an engineer. I'm looking at it in terms of what I think would be best for the city and how we'll benefit. And obviously, none of us wants something that would hurt the city, but I think you have to determine long-term what is going to be best for us. And they're not going to do a tunnel if it's impossible, but I kind of think that's ridiculous because we have tunnels all over. And we have the Henry Kinney Tunnel. And what other tunnels do we have? We have tunnels in Miami. So I don't think a tunnel is impossible. And I just don't
types of
want to talk
tunnels.
about the technicality of it because it's not my expertise or
Right.
any of us.
Right, but I think that where the mayor is coming from on this is that, just as you said, wouldn't it be wonderful? If we had
Yeah.
all the money in the world and a tunnel was possible to build with all the money in the world, wouldn't that be great? Then we would have, we wouldn't have to shut the roads down. Obviously, I mean, that's a no-brainer. The question then becomes is there enough money in the world to do it? And is it technically
Madam
That's
Chair,
not hard to
if I
see.
may finish,
Gonna get
if I
to
may finish here, I'm not trying to kill the project. I'm trying to give the pros and cons. And with that in mind, I hope it does work out and I hope it is effective in reducing a lot of the east-west, west-east traffic that's plaguing our corridors. But I have to, as an engineer, I have to look at all these different parameters to make sure that we don't fall into a trap.
Well, okay, Peter.
Peter?
So what James brought up was specifically the mayor's position opposed to the Department of Transportation proposal to cross the New River with a high-level bridge for commuter rail. And he fears the consequences of that, as do I, in dividing the city. Now, it may be that some of the things that Ralph is saying is why, on the surface, Department of Transportation has so many reservations, apparently, about building a tunnel. But at this point, the mayor is encouraging everybody to get on board to oppose a bridge. And I have no problem about doing that as an individual. We may have a role in trying to understand why it is that Department of Transportation appears to so strongly oppose a tunnel. Maybe they believe that it is technically infeasible, but that has not been adequately explained, certainly outside of Department of Transportation, as far as I'm aware.
But as James pointed out, why were we not involved in that discussion? We weren't involved because this is not a discussion on how to build the tunnel, how much the tunnel costs.
Right.
This is a question of the mayor saying, we would prefer a tunnel. And I don't think anybody would not prefer a tunnel if it could, if it could be done. I think at some point after this, it may then become, okay, is this feasible? How much is it going to cost? Who's going to pay for it? I mean, this could suck up a tremendous amount of money.
Well-
And they will probably ask us to pay a share. We're not only talking about state money and federal money. They will probably ask us to pay a city share. And, is that do we have that money? And
Well-
is that what we want to use our money for? So at that point, it may in fact become, one of those headline issues that we would get involved in.
I would hate that we would go to a bridge that's going to divide the city, that's going to hurt neighborhoods that are under it. I would hate that we would take that position based on money. I would rather us take a position at this point on supporting the concept of a tunnel because it's better for our city long-term.
Madam Chair.
And I don't know that we're ever going to have to decide as a board, does the money make sense? I don't know.
Roosevelt?
I believe when we are discussing your points and discussing the points here, you are talking about the tunnel going under the New River.
Correct, the FDOT
And
tunnel.
he is talking about the tunnel going to the beach.
I know, that's what I
So-
said.
So these
Are
are
you?
not,
That's exactly what he's saying.
support going under New River.
Amen.
I would not support going to the beach. Number
Perfect.
one, when you get to the end of the damn tunnel, you got to get back up in the same traffic you've been ducking. And so I don't support going to the beach and to the airport and all these other places they'll talk about going, but I do support going under the New River.
Perfect. You hit the nail on the
I
head.
didn't understand the New River. I was thinking of
Yeah, I
the
know.
tunnel.
Tesla
from
tunnel,
the
yeah, I knew you
beach
were,
into
Hey,
what you
downtown.
were saying.
All right.
So let's can we try to build a consensus and,
But you still have to look at the geology, the
but we're not going to do
constructability.
that.
But if it works out, yes, I agree that,
Excellent.
and even if the tunnels to the beach, if they can work out and they can justify, right now, it doesn't look like the volume of passengers would justify it. But
Again, that's
That's a whole
FDOT's job to figure that out.
That's a whole different deal.
Yeah, I don't know. Can we hear some other opinions? Does anybody else think that we should be taking a position on a bridge is better than, a tunnel is better than a bridge overall, absent any information about what it's going to cost and where the money's going to come from, and is it feasible?
leave the money out of it.
Right.
Oh,
Leave the money out, and let's talk about the purpose and the intent of what the bridge or the tunnel would do. And again, and we should separate under the new river versus to the beach.
Yeah, the only
definitely
thing,
separate. We're only talking now about the FDOT bridge under the New River. Nobody's asked us about the other one, and
Okay.
that's not the subject.
Never mind.
Right, so, yeah, I'll just say something. So I think the mayor made a pretty compelling argument last night for having a tunnel. There was some concern raised by Commissioner or Vice Mayor Moriatis about, well, if we agree to just having the tunnel, does that mean we won't get any money at all? So my understanding, they tabled it, and we're going to wait and have a meeting with FDOT people before they make a final comment as a city commission on wanting the tunnel. But clearly, the consensus of the group was for a tunnel. Their support at the county level, their support at the federal level. The mayor spoke of meeting with the Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, and that he was in favor of this. So I think it's something that we could at least make a statement on. Again, I'm the new guy here, so if it's not appropriate for us to say something, then we won't. But my opinion is we should say something to support what the city commission is doing, and it's really only the FDOT for some reason is pushing back on it all.
I agree with that.
Let's go around the room. What do you think? Jerry?
What I think is that nobody knows the whole story.
That's true.
And one of the things that we should request as the infrastructure task force is the whole story. Right? There are reasons why you want to go underneath. It comes down to the marine traffic and the upriver traffic to get to the marinas, and the argumentation about the Bascule Bridge for whether it's the commuter rail or the freight rail, right? Railroad people want the bridge to be down all the time. Marine people want the bridge to be up all the time. Right? That's the problem. So I've seen, for as many discussions as there's been, I've seen that many numbers of how much a tunnel would cost. Right? But is there any place where there's an entire study done that says, look, here's the amount of traffic there is, here's the logistics of the problem, here's the money of the problem, all in one place so that everybody could look at it and say, here's the story.
I'm only aware of
And then the other thing for me is, said this the other day, too many cooks in the kitchen.
Okay.
Right? Who's in charge of this? Who gets to vote? This is Fort Lauderdale. The thing runs right through, Jackie's point, right through the middle of Fort Lauderdale. Seems to me that that's the greater of equals of the inputs.
That's why I think it's important that we come forward,
Yeah,
give our opinion.
I'm with you, Jackie. Hey, this is why.
Okay. Local control. Yay. Okay. Some more input?
Well, unfortunately, I was occupied last night with another appointment, wasn't able to listen to the commission meeting or watch it and hear the mayor's comments. So I'd like Jerry was saying, a lot of details, that are missing, at least in my mind. I don't know exactly where FDOT, which right-of-way it wants to place a bridge. Don't know which right-of-way it wants to place a tunnel. So I feel like I'm considering this largely in, a rather vacuum without much context. So, I think generally I think it's obvious that, at least from an aesthetic point of view, a tunnel would be preferred over a bridge. I mean, there's scores of stories and published literature about, the effects that interstate highways and have had on neighborhoods and cleaving neighborhoods. And, but of course, that's vehicular traffic where you're talking about significant widths in right-of-way, where you talk about lots of land area that's consumed by interchanges, and then all of the, all that flows from massive amount of automobiles, and now you're unloading massive amount of automobiles, adjacent to these massive rights of way, whereas an elevated train is slightly different, and so it's largely, I think, a design issue. How do you design that elevated structure? What does the substructure look like? How does it interact with the ground? It may not impede, on, on activity underneath it in the same way that like I-95 would if you were to place it in the middle of a neighborhood. So I don't know exactly what FDOT is envisioning or where they're envisioning it, but I would agree as a general concept that a tunnel would seem to avoid at least a lot of the aesthetic issues that you immediately come to mind when you think of a bridge, right? So, but then of course the tunnel raises other issues, and it could be massively expensive, maybe prohibitively expensive. I don't know if we're really just relegated to a choice between those two options either. If we had a true multimodal system, then, look, I don't think that this north-south commuter rail is going to do a whole lot to be able to reduce the amount of commuter congestion you get in downtown Fort Lauderdale because, you've got to get people to shift modes, right? And as long as you've got roadway capacity, it's going to get used. And so adding some mass transit line without reducing surface capacity, you're always going to have that in that context on the surface of that much road and so that much traffic. And then really what you're doing is just adding capacity for regional travelers, really. Look, I don't drive the West Palm anymore. I take the Bright Line. So that does help some in that regard, but I'm not making that trip every day, and so I'm not, I don't necessarily believe that I'm part of the day-to-day reality of the inbound and outbound peaks in our urban core.
Yeah. Well,
So-
this whole concept of a commuter rail has been percolating in the fervent imagination of transportation planners for 30 years.
Yeah, well, look,
That is the goal. The goal is to have a commuter. The Bright Line was one thing. That was like the Tinkerbell Express, and it was a touristy
Start.
attraction.
It's
It
a
was a
start.
start, okay? Yeah. But it was always in their minds that eventually we would have a commuter rail line going from Miami to wherever.
Yeah.
That's like the holy grail for them, just like the wave was at one point.
It's all, I think it's an important component, it's not it's not the entire landscape. And so that's why I was saying, I think that, you could, if you had a real multimodal system, then, you could have different connections between, say, the Bright Line Station in Fort Lauderdale, and then the way that you cross the river through other options. I don't know why you've got I-95 that already has elevated bridges, where, why would you care if you had an elevated train within that right of way? It's not that far away. So, why can't you stitch together some other type of infrastructure that, you may have to, shift from one platform to the other, but, real cities, you do that. You're in a city and, you get to a station, you switch platforms and you're that way instead of this way. I think it's, then there are a lot of details, at least I don't know, that, maybe that's enough of a reason why, if you want us to talk about it, then let us know you want us to talk about it and let us have all the information. Otherwise, I think we're just, we're kind of swinging in the dark and giving a real opinion about it.
Okay, I see some nods over there, Shane.
Yeah, I'm definitely hesitant to opine without more information, especially on the feasibility of aerial versus underground. There's obviously something that FDOT is seeing that they don't like with the underground, so I would love to see their information and what is making them so adamant that we go over. But short of more information, I'd hate to really make a serious opinion.
Okay, well, maybe the thing that we should do is we should ask the FDOT to come and do a presentation. I know the project manager. I've seen him do an abbreviated program about this. But maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe we need to have
a
that kind of.
suggestion on that, Marilyn?
Certainly.
I don't know that we should be, I don't agree with that. Being
Okay.
the city commission is faced with a very difficult decision. We've got FDOT who's making this decision, and I think the city needs all the support they can get, okay, regarding a tunnel versus a bridge. And it's not from a technical perspective. I'd like to make a motion that in light of what FDOT is trying to make a decision on, which is a tunnel versus a bridge, and it affects our downtown, that we as a group believe that a tunnel right now is the best alternative. Okay, because they're trying to make a decision. We're not gonna have time is of the essence.
Could you explain that? I'm not aware of what the critical time element is.
Did you watch the commission meeting last
No,
night?
no, I did not.
Okay, very critical. There, from what everything that the mayor said last night, FDOT is really trying to push this through. I can't articulate exactly everything he said, but I think it's so important for us to take a position and support the commission, which have already said, even though they haven't voted, they all believe the tunnel is in the best interest of our city, which I agree with. And they are going to have a meeting with FDOT, but I'm sure it's not going to change anything. And I would like to add,
Is it an option?
I don't know if I could say that's, what's best. I mean, I could say maybe, well, I think generally it sounds better, but without knowing, I just don't know how I can say that's best. Because again, I don't know why I should only,
That's
why
the
there's only
problem.
2 options, and so, there could be, but real
Okay.
fast, I'm sorry, where is this located? Where's the bridge? Which right of way is it located in? Is it?
we're not going to get into that technicality, Mike. It's a matter of,
Well, I mean, you were talking about neighborhoods that get 7, not interested in
okay,
those
well, if it
neighborhoods.
goes over the New River, let's talk about Flagler Village, let's talk about Sailboat Bend, let's look at all the downtown neighborhoods that would be tremendously adversely impacted by a bridge.
Did they put forth any
Or
plan on where it's going?
Yeah, I mean.
Like, where does it start, where does it stop? How far past the waterway does it go?
What did the mayor say last night in reference to the size of the 17th Street Causeway Bridge?
It would be as high as the 17th Street Causeway.
And because of that, and because of it, it would be longer as well.
Right.
Why
You
is
got
it
a
that
long
high?
way.
Why is
So-
it that large?
I was just
get-
hoping that
'Cause of the
people would
grade.
understand that it's probably,
It's an intercoastal, I think it's an intercoastal issue. They got to get certain size boats under it or something? No?
Here's what I know.
But-
Here's what I understand from my involvement with the marine industries and the Marine Council of the Chamber. There were 3 alternatives for a bridge: 25 feet, 55 feet, and 80 feet.
Oh, my God, 80 feet.
And at 21 feet or 25 feet, it's going to go up and down almost as much as the one there now is going to go up and down. So that's not going to alleviate the strife between marine and rail traffic. At 55 feet, you start to get into the situation that Jacqueline described. Where it starts and where it finishes has to be elongated so that there's enough of a grade,
Right.
sufficient grade for the trains to go over. And at 80 feet, well, show of hands, who's going to get in a train and go up 80 feet in the air? Not to mention, it gets even longer, okay?
You never took the train out to Rockaway in New York City?
Didn't
Oh,
like
it
it.
was scary.
But so of the 3 bridge alternatives, there's only one real viable one, and that's the 55-foot bridge. And it still has to raise and lower a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the 17th Street Bridge is 55.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Rowe.
Yes.
What's getting involved here is some people are looking at the aesthetics, and I'm probably more inclined looking at the capability of such a tunnel, and then looking at what is it going to do now, and what is it going to do in another 20, 30 years if the density of our zoning areas continues to intensify with the population. So there's a lot of factors that you look into, that these things look at. I mean, it sounds great that it's going to take care of maybe the immediate problem for the next 5, 10 years. I don't know. That's the problem. There are so many unknowns that it's hard to say, yes, this is going to work, or no, it's not going to work. We really need there needs to be developed the positives and the negatives, of course, the costs, and what's the term life of this or like any project, going to be? Those are the key tests, if you will. But we don't know too much about it here.
You know, it seems to me that what we're looking at here is they're being forced to take a position on not enough information. I mean, why should we let FDOT force us into this or that when we haven't fully explored and they haven't given enough information to people about the project and where it's going to go and what it's going to cost, yada, yada, yada. So maybe rather than take a position one way or the other, say that, you know, we urge the commission to urge FDOT to back off on this.
It's not going to happen.
No, I don't know.
Well,
Peter?
they're going through PD&E in 2022. That's what they're doing?
I don't know. Say that again?
Believe so.
Right now,
Yeah, right, so
it's,
I don't
it's in,
think we-
it's
I
in
don't
process now, it's due
the end of,
shortly.
I think, okay, I thought it would be the end of 2022 and they thought they'd be done. It's supposed to be, have there been public hearings?
Yes, I
No,
think
the
so.
recommendation of what to do is being studied now.
Yeah, I know, the PD&E, but through that process, they'll hold public workshops and a public hearing.
That's been going on for months.
Going on.
Yeah,
I thought that's
there have been
Continuing
public.
through the end of next year, was my understanding.
No. They're ready to make a decision because there's federal funding and everything coming down. And FDOT is pushing hard for that bridge. And the mayor has been working extremely hard
All right, so
to
the
build
PD&E
support
study
for the tunnel.
Nearly complete.
Pardon me?
PD&E study's nearly complete.
Could you tell us what PD&E is?
Preliminary development and,
Project development
Yeah.
and environment.
yeah, so it's, you know, it's evaluating the feasibility of various options, and usually there's a report that's generated.
I believe that has happened, yes, because I've seen their webpage.
The real question is, are we going to put a bridge over our city, or are we going to force them to do a tunnel so we don't have a bridge dissecting our city?
Peter,
So,
and then Roosevelt. Peter.
so I think I haven't heard one member of this board say anything in favor or positive about a bridge. Clearly, we can only talk in principles. I think Jackie made or tried to make a resolution. Did you? Would you like me to have a go at what you said? So I'll make this resolution that the infrastructure task force is opposed to any bridge crossing the New River for commuter rail and Brightline, and the only new crossing of the New River should be in a tunnel, if needed.
Second that.
Well,
Wait.
it can't be a resolution, it's going to have to be a motion.
He's making a motion. That's what he says.
Okay, no, he
Okay,
said
that's-
resolution.
Did say a resolution. You're right.
Yeah, he said resolution, so it can't be a resolution, it has to be a motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I think that there needs to be some type of, oh,
Like-
sorry.
You mean cross, it shouldn't cross the New River anywhere east of 95? Because I don't know where it is. I mean,
It's where the railroad goes
That's-
through the downtown.
That's a good point. So, in a moment, I'll ask the recording secretary to read the motion back, and I'll add in the, well, I guess it's the corridor, the current
what are two?
FEC
Yes.
corridor, correct?
This is the one that goes through downtown.
Bright line.
So it's,
Yeah.
so Michael, it's the current
The
FEC
line.
corridor.
So no bridge.
It's the
on that.
current FEC, because I see what you're saying. It's certainly not impossible to envision mass transit within the I-95 corridor, for
Right.
example. So I can make it more explicit.
Okay, but given what it is right now.
So
yeah,
part,
it's
excuse
discussion.
me, part of the discussion last night was that the train that uses the current track does not want to go out west to the other train track because
Right.
that track they don't own that track and they would have to pay to use that track.
Okay.
So they want a bridge. The train people want a bridge.
The choice, can I ask you what you said? The train people, the FCC people,
They don't want to use a tunnel.
they don't want to use them. The guy who owns the railroad line does not want to go into a tunnel. Is that what you're saying?
That's what was said last night.
What does they
Correct me
care?
if I'm wrong, Jackie.
I think that's correct. That's the way I heard it as well.
So we're not only battling the FDOT, we're battling the owner of the railroad.
But the FDOT.
But they're already there. So that's status quo.
Just by information.
I think the motion is good, except I think we need to add some type of clause that says if it's feasible, that the tunnel is feasible. That we have to, because we need to do something. We need
See,
a new bridge.
I would not qualify if feasible. At this point, we're talking very broad brush. And unless somebody strongly disagrees, I haven't heard anybody say anything in favor of a bridge to put rail tracks on. So I think the principle is we do not want a bridge in the downtown area.
And I agree with that.
If I may, yes, the aesthetics, but if the owner is balking at this, it's undoubtedly, there's probably a lot of insurance involvement that's probably scaring them to say, hey, if we go under it with a tunnel, we're going to have to pay X more dollars. I don't know. I'm just supposing.
So the whole thing was, they didn't vote on it last night. They tabled it because they need to meet with FDOT, and that was upcoming. And I think it would behoove us in some way or another to be involved or participate or at least attend that meeting if that's feasible or if that's allowed.
I agree with that. Aesthetically, the tunnel is obviously the best way to go. I mean, you don't see it, it cuts down from all the other aerial distractions we have, but I think we need more information and, to find out exactly all of the factors involved. I mean,
So can we be invited to attend a meeting like that?
It's going to be open. Everybody can attend.
It's open to the public.
Yeah, it's good. Are they going to do it?
Yeah, it's going to be at
gotta be.
11:30
Are they
in the
gonna do a
morning on the 18th, but,
Then we'll all go.
pardon me?
But I think that.
We can all go, but we have the opportunity to offer support
Exactly.
conceptually for believing a tunnel is best for our city.
Can we add the word conceptually to the motion?
Well, I have to amend the motion anyway. If I can ask the recording secretary to read back what she has, please. Can you read back the motion that I made, if possible? If not, I'll try it again.
Okay, so it was to resolution or motion,
The motion, yes. Change that.
structured is opposed to a bridge crossing New River for commuter. New crossing of New River should be done by a tunnel.
That was simple. Yeah, that was it.
Sorry, can you say it one more time?
I'm sorry. The board is opposed to a bridge crossing the New River for commuters. They want a new crossing of the New River by tunnel.
So I'll amend that to say the board is opposed to any bridge crossing of the New River within
No, we're getting carried.
within the well, it's not within the FEC corridor. How would I say it, Michael? Close to the FEC corridor?
So within the
The
downtown.
board is opposed to any crossing
currently a
of the
commuter
New
line.
River
Yeah.
by a bridge close to the downtown?
Yeah,
In the downtown.
In the downtown, so in the downtown is an addition. And if there is any new crossing of the New River in the downtown, it should be by means of a tunnel. And let me step back to the first sentence and add in front, in principle, the ITF is the rest of it. So I've worked the words in principle in.
Could you repeat that, please, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair? I didn't quite hear what you just said.
Okay, I'm going to try it one more time. In principle, the ITF is opposed to any new bridge for commuter rail within the downtown crossing the New River, and is only in favor of a tunnel if there is to be a new crossing for rail.
I second those changes.
Okay, procedurally, that's where we're at. Michael,
I was just wondering, would it make more sense just to leave it with the first half?
excuse me?
The clear opposition to the bridge.
Yes, I'll accept that amendment. So I will drop out the second part to say anything about if there is to be a
Plus, we
crossing.
pretty much know.
It just says
In
we are
principle.
opposed to a bridge for commuter rail crossing the New River within the downtown in principle.
In principle. Okay, I think that's broad enough that we could, Roosevelt? It would be much better if it was a consensus opinion.
Yeah, I'm
Let's take a
glad
vote.
you won.
All righty.
Vote.
Can we,
Hesitantly, but I'm gonna provide.
thank you, appreciate that. So we
Is there
have-
any way we can leave it to just the FDOT's proposed bridge instead of saying any bridge?
No, any
So I personally, if it was the same size as the bridge that's there now and it was feasible, I wouldn't be as hesitant, I wouldn't be as anti. But if you're talking a 55-foot bridge, that's out of the question. I completely agree. But if it's something to the same magnitude that's there now, I'm not totally against that. So that's
But
where my hesitation.
I know what you're saying, but it won't be because it wouldn't make any sense.
Peter, can you put in some language that would address that we are, in
It's not
principle, we're
necessary.
opposed to
It's
the
not necessary.
55-foot bridge?
FDOT's proposed bridge?
No, then we're saying the bridge is okay. I don't support that.
No.
See, at this point, I think we're just making a stand to do our best to assist the mayor. There's all sorts of details about this that may yet have to come out, but we're just trying to reinforce the mayor's position.
Every commissioner last night said they supported a tunnel versus a bridge. So I don't know why we can't.
Well, but we
Can we say-
have to express our own opinions.
Correct.
It's very interesting that every commissioner expressed the preference, but this is our preference.
Okay,
Can we
but I'm
change
just,
it to state that we prefer a tunnel to a bridge rather than say no bridges whatsoever? That's my, speaking definitive against bridges, I don't know if I'm okay with. But if we prefer the tunnel option over the bridge, I'm on board with that completely.
See, I think I'd rather make it a strong statement at this point.
I agree.
I concur with you, Peter.
All right, that,
Support the mayor, make a strong statement, and let's,
then we, if we don't have a consensus, we don't have a consensus. Everybody has to, absorb it and make their own decision, but we have a very clear motion on the table and a second. And
Need a
I
roll
don't
call.
think any more discussion is going to change anybody's mind. So,
Have a
Shep,
roll
can we have
call.
a roll call, please?
Can we read that one more last time? If you can read that one more time to make sure we've got the verbiage clear.
In principle, the ITFC opposes any bridge crossing the New River for commuter rail in the downtown.
Period.
Did you have the words in there for commuter rail?
Well, what was the words for commuter rail in there previously?
Yes.
Then we're okay.
Before we vote, can I just ask Jerry one more question about this?
Sure.
The 25-foot bridge, the lesser magnitude bridge, was completely ruled out because openings were too frequent and it would serve no benefit, or they didn't really evaluate it, and that was the assumption.
I don't, excuse me. I don't know that they ruled it out.
Okay.
The last presentation I saw still showed 25, 55, and 80.
And the 25,
But I can also say that both the rail traffic and the boat traffic is increasing.
Okay,
One of the other things that has to sooner or later come out of all of this is, it's to Ralph's point, you got to do something. No build is not a solution. Because, right, it's not working. It's not working.
and I apologize for not having more background information on this, but the 25-foot bridge, the train is obviously got to be a less of a severe grade than a standard bridge. So did they show an order of how far out that 25 was going to be?
Yeah, but I don't have the presentation.
But it's obviously a lot bigger than the standard bridge, so we're not looking at the same size bridge regardless. If it was 25 foot, it's still going to extend way
Jackie, do you
beyond,
remember where,
Oh, yeah.
I know there's the neighborhoods are affected by any
Yes.
of the three proposed.
regardless of the size of the
I
bridge?
think what they
Right, so
said
there,
last
the
night,
bridge will impact the neighborhoods on the south and the neighborhoods on the north.
Regardless of height,
No, the higher it is, the more
the
further.
more it impacts, but the
Right.
smallest one is still going to impact.
Yeah, you
impact
still
the
gotta go
adjacent
a ways
neighborhood.
out. You gotta get that bridge, that
Okay,
train.
I'm fine.
But he only talking about a 25-footer.
Yeah, and so the 25-footer is less impact than a 55-footer. 80-foot is out of the question.
But it's
Although there
probably-
are people who are talking, well, never mind. Okay, we got it. We have that. Everybody understands
yeah.
what the
So-
resolution is?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way to have the bridge that's the same size as what's there now.
Oh, no.
So
No.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote on this, please.
Read the names. Mr. Angeli,
Aye.
Shane Grabsky,
yes.
James Labrie,
Aye.
Michael Marshall,
Yes.
Jacqueline Scott,
yes.
Vice Chair Partington,
Yes.
Roosevelt Walters,
Yes.
Ralph Zeltman,
Yes.
and Chair Mamano.
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, we didn't see that one coming. Thank you, James, for bringing that to our attention.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but when he brought it up, I'm all in. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so any more of the general discussion before we get on to our agenda? Please, okay.
Chair Mamano,
Yes, okay.
As-
No, listen.
point of interest.
Yes, no, we have.
February 3rd's Tower Forum is entitled Over or Under. How are we getting across the New River?
That is an excellent point of information.
Chair, if I may, I understand that we have to be out of here by 4:30. so
Yes, we
that's
do.
About an hour from now.
Yes, thank you for reminding me, and I will remind everybody on that. And some of these will go very quickly. Under old business, update on communications to the city commission. Can we get an update? Did our communication go out to the city commission, or when is it going out?
That communication for the extension, you know?
No, the last communication that we made, the one about the, what was the last one? Oh, asking the commission to give us an opportunity to comment on the water treatment plant proposals before they make a decision.
I need to check on that.
No,
Stephen, do you know?
Chair.
Hang on,
Sure.
we were gonna get an answer, hold on.
January 18th.
Thank you. January, thank you very much,
Wait.
thank you.
Chair, which
Peter?
also happens to be the projected day that the P3 solicitations for 5 Ash will come out of the shade and will be on a commission agenda.
They're gonna have a commission agenda on the 18th with the water treatment
I
plants.
believe so. Is
the-
that your understanding, Omar?
That is correct, yes,
Okay, well, that's fine. They come out of the shade, and this is,
yes.
that's actually good timing. That's excellent timing. So let me ask you a question about this new resolution that we just made today. Do we have to wait for the minutes to be approved before it goes on the 18th agenda? No. So we will see both of our communications to the commission on the 18th. No? Why can't we do that?
That's the whole purpose of us doing is to communicate.
I'm sorry, darling. That would be unfortunate. She needs lead time They can't just put it on she needs lead time. They can't just put it on an agenda. They need a lead time. They have to get the paperwork in. The city clerk has to go over it.
Being what?
Well, apparently more than January.
To communicate what we just,
Correct.
how do you need lead time to type that and send it to the commission?
No, that's not being reasonable, Jackie. There are procedures that have to go
No,
on.
I don't understand that.
Well, Simi, would you like to come up and explain how the calendar works and the communications?
We can all
We can
communicate.
work around this.
Yeah,
If
okay,
this has to happen, we'll work around it.
It has to happen.
Well, we'll have to work around it.
Hi, Simi Collier, staff liaison. So it takes about a week for the minutes to be produced. And by that time, we will review it, but the city clerk also needs to have that the Wednesday prior to the meeting, like the week before that meeting. So looking at the 18th, I'm not sure that you would be able to get it in on time.
So let me ask you this. You should make your best, we look to you to make your best efforts to make it work.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, is there any reason why we can't go to the hearing and speak on that the motion was made and passed unanimously, even though you haven't sent it as a communication?
It won't technically be a communication, but you as a resident are welcome to.
There we go. We'll work around it.
Yeah, you just go as the chairman.
Just go and say, you will be getting this communication in the normal course of affairs, but this is what we did. Thank you, Simi.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right. Okay. So they will have 2 communications from us that day. Oh, they're going to love us. Okay, update on any other discussion of that? No?
Is there public comment?
On every item. Thank you very much.
Turn the timer on.
And we really do have a timer problem. How do you turn the timer on? You know how to do this?
Let me know when you're ready.
Right. Three. Okay, and it has to be on this issue.
Yeah, the communication with the city, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good.
Yeah, I went to last night's city commission meeting, and from what I understand is those unsolicited bids are already out of the chute. And so they're public record right now. I think you guys really need to request that. And also they said that on the 18th, they're going to make a decision on whether or not to go with you're shaking your head no. They're making a decision on whether or not they're going to accept one of these or go with, having the city figure out what to do, either build a new water treatment plant or not. So I already put in my public records request for these documents, and David Solomon he's working on it now. I think you guys should get copies of this before the 18th, so you can be aware of it. Also, the Ernst & Young report they were doing, they analyzed these unsolicited bids, and they have some kind of a report that we don't have. I think those are also out of the shade. So the public wants to know, and you guys should know, definitely before the 18th. Now, you're telling me that on the 18th, they're not going to make a
No,
decision?
I take that back. I'm not privy to what they're going to do, but I'm going to ask that question when you finished.
Right. And last night, they were going to talk about this issue, the unsolicited bids. But they said, well, since Robert McKenzie, Commissioner McKenzie, wasn't present, they decided not to talk about this issue without a member present. So we've been waiting about a year now for these bids to be able to look at them. And the excuse was, oh, we'd love to show it to you, but we can't by law. And now that they're available, we're saying, well, we can't show it to you. We don't want to show it to you now because a commissioner is not present. So it just really doesn't make any sense at all. So I'd get to the bottom of that.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Omar, can I ask you a question? Are the unsolicited bids for the water treatment plant out of the shade and publicly available?
To my understanding, they're not. I need to check with the clerk, but I don't think they are. So we haven't shared it with anybody else, but the commissioners.
Peter?
So practically speaking, if this is going to be as intended on the agenda, the City Commission's agenda of the 18th, the agenda is usually published on the Friday before, and all the papers backup papers are with the agenda. So on the Friday before, everybody can read what's being said and what's been proposed. It's fortunate that our motion of certain principles relating to the P3 is also on the agenda, because at least the Commission will see the principles that we laid down. If any individuals, and I think I encourage people to go, want to speak as members of the public, they should be able to, and they can at least refer back to the principles that we've laid down. But I'm looking forward to seeing the proposals as well.
Okay, well, we're all looking forward to seeing them. Okay, all right, and you're right. If they are going to be on the agenda, they have to be published the day. But I have seen that not happen. I have seen that not happen, where the agenda comes out and the backup is not there.
And they can do a walk-on too.
And well, doing a walk-on for that would be like amazing. Okay.
This is a huge
This is huge.
item, because this has huge implications.
Okay, I wouldn't be surprised if what they're going to talk about, well, I don't know. I'm not speculating. No speculation. Okay, update on the city, that's that. We'll go on to the double I. Update on the city's response to the summary report and recommendations of Broward County Condominium Structural Issues Committee. Yes, Omar.
I got an email from John Travers from DSD. There is no update on that. He hasn't heard anything, or so we're still waiting for that.
So they have gotten the report, I'm sure.
Yeah, but
They're looking at the report.
Right, they haven't heard a response yet.
Okay, and at some point, DSS will
DSD,
make
yeah.
some opinion. All right.
Yeah.
See, that one went very quickly. Triple I, update on the city's strategy for getting federal infrastructure funds. Again.
So we are hiring a person to help us with the grants.
Aha.
We're taking that step. We are also applying for some mitigation funding tomorrow. That's with the county. It's for projects that could be damaged on a hurricane or any kind of event, climate event. So all that's going in tomorrow. I think there's about 9 or 10 projects that we're requesting funds.
Can we get a list of those projects?
Yeah, we can get a list.
That would be very
Okay.
helpful. Yeah, but okay, Peter?
So, Omar, when you say we're hiring a grants person, does that mean that are you talking about the city or Public Works specifically?
Public Works, because a lot of these grants go through Public Works.
You see, I'm a little concerned that we don't have our ducks in a row already. I think I said last time that the governor has proposed, maybe it's even passed now, a budget that includes 270 million local matches required for bridges. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. That's for drainage. But bridges are also the state level has approved funding, and we still have certain bridges that are rated structurally deficient. That's one thing. And then I also saw a newspaper article that says of the 1.2 trillion
You must be a chair.
infrastructure bill, there is this is where I got this, 245 million for bridge replacement, and the White House estimates that there are 408 bridges and so many miles of highways. I'm not quite sure whether they're talking about within Florida or countrywide. I'm thinking it must be Florida. So there's already pots of money out there, and we should have our foot in the door. And we just seem to be hiring a grants person. So this concerns me a bit.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
And I agree, it's not a strategy. You've hired a person. That's not a strategy. What's the strategy?
Well, right now, there is not a person assigned to work on these grants. So that's the strategy, to have somebody to do all the grants for the bridges, infrastructure. So, and we are applying for all kind of grants and funding for projects right now. So there is a lot of.
And I know, having been on your side, I know exactly what you're thinking, and the staff does a good job in filling out grant applications and so forth. But there's nothing better than having people in the right place, specifically in Washington and in Tallahassee. And I believe the city has such people already. So they really need to, within the city, our lobbyists need to be briefed on what is needed and what are our priorities for the grants that are apparently available.
Roosevelt?
Yes, and I agree with you, Peter. And I was going to go along that line as well. But when the person that public works person or persons that public works is going to hire, their job is going to be to write the grant or to go up and push for the money in Tallahassee or Washington, D.C. And if they are pushing for the money, who is writing the grants? And who is identifying what problem the grant should be written for?
So this person will do everything that you're talking about.
No.
Yeah. So they will be looking where grants opportunities are, and they'll be coordinating that the paperwork is submitted on time, and that's a big problem sometimes.
Okay, but we do have state lobbyists.
We do.
They're working all the time.
We do.
Why don't we get them down here and
You
talk
know-
to them about what's the strategy? I mean, we got to talk to somebody about hiring a person is important because you need the personnel to actually write the papers and get the papers in on time. We have a person who writes grants. We have lots of people who writes grants. Okay, we need one particular more person for this, maybe because it's a lot of money. No problem there.
Yeah.
But that person, somebody's got to tell that person what grants to write for.
Yeah.
And what funds to go after, and what are our key priority projects? It always comes back to what are our key priority projects? What needs to go first?
Right.
So we really need to have that discussion. I would like to have Alan come to the next meeting.
Yes.
And to have a really good discussion about what are we going to tell the grants person to do? Where are we going to go? What is available? And which ones are we going to go after? And why are we going after that ones in particular?
And maybe the city manager as well. I think, there's so much money and tactical, hire people, that's good. I haven't heard a strategy yet.
Yeah.
I know what that is.
Yes.
My recollection is that we had a discussion in the last year or so about going after grants. Okay, and that was probably a year ago. So Omar, what I'm wondering is, does the city currently have someone that goes after grants for the whole city? And now are you getting a second person that just focuses on your department?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I
So
meant.
the person that we had for grants, were they able to obtain any grants specifically for infrastructure for your department?
Yes.
They have already gotten
Yeah,
some?
we just got a grant for $10.5 million not long ago for stormwater.
So does that person, I listened to what Roosevelt said, and it makes a lot of sense. That person that you have currently, do they do everything? See where the money is, write the grant? I mean, is one person supposed to be doing all those things? It seems to me those are different specialties.
The person that I'm talking about is the person that is going to be coordinating between Public Works and the grant department. There is also a grant department here in the city.
Can we get the
But
grant
I
department down
I
here?
think my question
Yeah,
is,
there is a department that deals with the grants.
I think my question
I'm
is,
sorry, and they keep track of how much money is being spent on the grants, and they report on that. Yeah.
so I guess my question is, Do you know if the current person that we have within the city, which I think is only one person, right?
Yes.
Okay. And does that person do everything as Roosevelt described it? Because, I mean, you got to research where they are. You got to,
Yeah, I'm not familiar exactly.
I don't know that
because
business.
they're outside Public Works.
Yeah.
So I'm not, when he asked
You're not a
about the
grant person.
strategy, I don't know an overall strategy.
Okay.
We're hiring a position for Public Works to look after, what grants are out there, how to coordinate with the other people. That's all.
Well, that's great. I'm happy. Peter, you want to say something?
So I think what we're saying is that it's one thing to have people with the ability to write grants. I used to do that. It's another thing to bring those grants to fruition. And what I see, I'm still not clear on, is how the city functions with respect to now going after our share of the 1.2 million infrastructure bill at Washington level, and there is now a lot of money at state level as well. I would really like to hear how we are pursuing those new pots of money.
Yeah, I definitely.
And he's right. We should have the city manager and Alan, because they run the whole city. I mean, the city manager does, so he's familiar with all fire and police and all that. So yeah.
Okay, well, my understanding is that we have a very talented woman, Daphne. I don't remember her last name. She's been here, yeah. But she's our legislative representative as well. I mean, she's working now on the legislative stuff up in Tallahassee. And there is a relationship between the legislation and the budget, yada, yada. So that's good. But again, somebody is telling Daphne what to go after. And that's the person who is the city manager.
Correct.
And we need to talk with the city manager at our next meeting,
Yeah.
which brings me to the last item on the agenda. How is the resolution going to reestablish this committee, and will it be done before we expire? And is it being changed? We expire on our last meeting is February, the first Monday in February, correct? Our last meeting, first Monday in February. I think the actual resolution
It's done, isn't it?
18th.
It's been signed. I mean, it was approved.
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry. Go ahead,
The
Peter.
resolution, did you say the resolution's already been approved?
Yes, I believe
Yeah,
so.
it was approved, and we're waiting only on signature from the city manager, so it's en route.
Oh, correct. Terrific. And in its being approved, is it the same as it was, or did they change it? Is it the same resolution that established us previously?
It's for a 3-year term,
Yeah. But did they,
extended for 3 years.
the existing committee is extended for 3 years?
Yes.
So then
Yeah,
definitely.
there is a camp that was,
We're going to have the city manager here.
there was a camp that was approved on December 21st.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The previous,
3 year.
the
Yeah.
previous resolution was basically extended. There's another short resolution that basically extends the previous resolution for another 3 years. So
Yeah.
in terms of reference are exactly the previous.
Definitely
so-
next, February 1, we need to talk to the city.
February 18th of 2025, that's the expiration of it.
And the big item for the city manager, among others that we may think of, is what is our strategy for getting some of this federal money and state money for infrastructure? Because
Yeah.
that's going to be a big chunk of money, and if we don't get a big chunk of money, the budget's going to get blown because we won't have enough money.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much for that update. Okay, well, we have to be out of here at 4:30. What time is it now? I don't have a watch.
3:45,
It's 3:45? Okay.
3:48.
Okay. All right, so new business. We're up to new business. Well, we certainly covered a lot of new business previously. Okay. Does anybody have any other new business they want to cover? No? All right. The Public Works updates. Do we have, in the backup, was there the year-end water and sewer breaks map? Or, I'm sorry, I don't have my backup with me here. Omar, in the backup, did we have the newest, the latest, the full year?
Yeah, it's on the package. It's got the whole year from January to December.
Okay. Oh, thank you, darling, I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question on this backup material?
Thank you.
Who copied this number 2 font and thinks we're going to read it?
Nobody expects
Which
you to-
one?
Last page.
Standard, yes.
It's water sewer report. It's pretty funny. Maybe it's a size 1 font. All this stuff, it's not readable. Well, for me, maybe the rest of you.
All right, we'll,
In the
you
future.
mean this one here?
Look at this.
Let me see it.
Just
But,
make it big enough
but,
so
but
it's.
Jackie, how did you get that?
How did I get that?
Yeah.
On the table back there.
Oh, okay. Because we're not sent that now. We don't have, you know, there's a few copies
Yeah,
up front, but we're not actually sent beforehand physical copies.
no, not physical,
We get sent the
it all comes in
electronically, yeah.
electronically.
And I've got
Which I
used,
assume we can-
I finally got used to working off that.
Right. All right, well, just, how's it looking for the last year?
I say it looks pretty good. I mean, if you look at the breaks, we only had a few water breaks, looking at 6 for the whole year.
6 for the whole year, that's not bad.
And the sewer, there's a few more, but there is a lot of that are small pipes. You know, we didn't have anything major that broke for sewer.
And we didn't have any force mains that broke and put water, effluent into the canals?
Actually, the total force main breaks is total of 6 for the whole year. And the water, I had to add them up, but it looks like it's a lot of small pipes, you know, for the water breaks. I don't think there was a main more than I think like 12 inches that broke for the water. So
Yeah. It's hugely improved compared
yeah,
to
it has.
a couple of years ago. And the last significant sewer main break was on the 5th of October, and it was 1,500 gallons.
Progress.
Right.
Progress, yes. And I'm curious, I'll go back and look at it. The places where we were having the trouble, the major trouble, the last 3-4, going back 2, 3, 4 years, those were in sewer lines that were fixed.
Mhm.
Okay? So what this represents is of the remaining sewer lines that we haven't touched yet,
Correct.
this is what we've got in terms of
Right.
on-the-ground situation.
But the main sewer line, the one that you just finished, I mean, we only have a small portion left to fix that, and that's part of the consent order. So that should be done before 2026.
Yeah.
Actually, we're going to start on that when we get the bond money in 2023.
So we should be looking forward to a peaceful 2022 in terms of water and sewer breaks?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, that would be great, wouldn't it? All right, well, thank you for putting that information together.
Okay.
That's very comforting information to me, anyway.
Chair, I'm looking forward to getting a Hazen Sawyer map that has no red lines on it, infrastructure at high risk.
As we all are. As a matter of fact, it would be probably at some point really important to have Hazen and Sawyer come back and give us an update on how much of that program that they identified has actually been accomplished.
Do you when do you want that?
March, perhaps, if that's
Okay.
possible, or just
Yeah.
put that on the burner, and when they're ready to give us a presentation sooner
Okay.
rather than later.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
a question when you get.
certainly.
Can you tell us, as regarding the redundant force main, the one that's been completed, when it's anticipated to be, the flow of wastewater is going to be channeled into the redundant force main so that they can start working on the existing force main?
So the force main that we just fixed, I mean, the one that we just built, everything is going through there right now, right? All of it. So there is only a small section that is still, we still have the pipe has not been replaced, that the flow is going through. These are the projects that are part of this consent order, phase 2, which will be completed by 2026. So once we get the money for 2023, we're going to start the construction. The design has already started for all those projects. Yeah.
So, but there is no funding for the rehabilitation of the redundant line, which the old line will now be the redundant line.
Right. So when we get the funding in 2023, some of that $200 million bond is going to be used to fix that pipe, to line it or to change it. But the design of that is already being started.
Good.
Okay.
All right, and when you say the next 200 million, that's the second $200 million bond for sewer?
Yeah, for the consent order.
Has that been approved?
We believe, we should get it in October 2023. We had to spend the money for the 200 million that we have right now.
Right.
That's the chart that he was looking at. So it shows how much we spent, and we had to spend that money by 2022, the end of 2022.
So at some time in the next little while, the city commission is going to have to approve the second $200 million bond.
Yes.
So we haven't done that yet.
No.
Oh.
But that's the plan, to continue with all the other projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any estimated time on when the commission is going to take the action of approving a second $200 million bond?
I'm guessing a few months before the time happens. I mean, even probably before that. I think they're already working on the paperwork for all that stuff, so. Okay.
That's $400 million for sewers.
Right. Okay.
And that's not the end of it, no. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for this update. I appreciate it. Actually, I don't know that we need any more to continue on the impact fee usage update, because since the state tightened up the rules and regulations about what you can use the impact fees for, you're now reporting those specifically project by project in the CIP, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, so when you look at your CIP and you look at where's the funds coming from, some of them will say impact fee funds, which was a good thing, because we never knew where the money was going. Now we know exactly where the money's going. That's great. Peter?
Can I go to the financial report?
Yeah.
Are we there yet?
Yeah, Peter and then James.
So on the financial report, it concerns me a little that the balances, meaning remaining funds to be spent, don't change that month to month, but let's let that go. You have a $15.7 million balance for 5-ash upgrades. Now, will some of that be freed up, depending on what happens with the P3s that are about to be considered, or is that money pretty much spoken for now, whatever happens?
Yeah, you're looking at the total of 25 million, right? That's the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so
Five ash upgrades, and there's 15.7 million remaining balance.
If we don't need all that money to make some upgrades on 5-ash, we're doing some critical updates to maintain the plant operating until we build a new plant. But some of the money might not be used for the upgrades. So we do budget transfers to other critical projects that might need money to be completed. So it depends, you know. At this point, we don't know everything that we're gonna need for 5-ash. We're working on it right now, and that's what the encumbrances show, that right now we have about $4 million on that. But that doesn't mean that all that money is gonna be used for 5-ash. We might have to move it to other projects.
That's one of that's why that budget is so fluid.
Correct.
Because every time we see a CIP budget and it says, we got this much money is all committed.
Yeah.
But they're never not necessarily going to spend all that money on that project. And if they need it someplace else, they get a budget transfer, okay? And then we got to follow the budget transfer. But it's much clearer now than it used to be. It used to be very opaque on, you know, what money was taken out of this line, put into this line. I mean, it's like 3D chess. Because I'm looking at the George T. Lohmeyer treatment plant, and you've got $28 million assigned to that. You've only spent $165,000. okay?
Yeah.
Does that mean that there's $28 million sitting committed somewhere? That we now have, it's like, if we need it for something, we'll take it out of George Lohmeyer, you know? This budget is crazy. You've seen these budget things. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
What, is 28 million sitting in the bank someplace? Every time Laura comes, Laura Reese, the financial lady, she comes, she sounds so clear, and everything seems very clear in my mind anyway. And then I look at it again and I say, well, where's the $28 million? I always ask, where's that $28 million? It's not really $28 million. It's paper $28 million. It's what we would spend if we needed to spend $28 million.
Madam
Strange.
Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question regarding the George C. Lomar. We had discussed previously about, at one time, they were proposing a sixth deep well injection system. And because of the II program, there was some thought regarding that maybe an additional deep well injection may not be required. Is that still looking hopeful? I mean, I haven't seen any flow reports or the additional flows, especially like during heavy rain events. Is there any indication? I'm sure there has to be that is not as severe as it once was, and if it's forecasted when that inflow of the rainwater, especially, and the groundwater, will get down to a point where the additional deep well won't be required.
We still have enough capacity on GTL right now, even with the rain events. We're working on the I&I. We have a lot of projects on the CIP that are going to be very active with the I&I. At this point, we don't need that well. Hopefully, with all the I&I work, if we keep focusing on that, it's going to eliminate adding the sixth well, unless the population increases so much that we need extra capacity.
Well, that's
Thank
going to
you.
happen.
It is going to happen, but it's going to happen not in the next 20, 30 years. We have a lot of capacity left.
I don't know about that. 20, 30 years of
I
development.
mean, I can predict it, but there is some projections that have been done on it, and as it is right now, we have enough capacity. And Igor over there does those letters, and he that's what he looks at.
Yeah, and thank you, Igor, for keeping a watch on that. But here's the limit,
Right.
and here's where we're at.
Right.
And the only thing that makes that limit go down is I&I.
Correct.
Okay, and we're right there. I mean,
Yeah.
what do we got? 2-3% more to go, 5% more to go. I don't mean for you to answer that question right now, but there's not when you look at the charts, and you got the green is what we got, and the red is what we're using or committed, and there's not much left between the red and the green, and another couple of how many developments, it's
Right.
going to go over at some. I mean, and we should be planning for like 5-10 years. At some point, it's going to go over, and what are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do when it goes over.
Yeah. So like I said, on those basins that we did a lot of I&I work, we see a big difference on the flows.
Have you quantified it? And have we
Yes.
got some statistics?
We have quantified. Hazen actually did a report.
So when Hazen comes to talk with us about the update of all their work, can we include their analysis of how much impact the I&I has made
We
in
can.
terms of?
I mean that really it's be a savings because many pump stations aren't as pumping as long as they normally were because of the reduction of the from the I&I. So it's a over encompassing money saver when we get these gravity sewers fixed and
Yeah.
replaced.
Did Hazen do a map that shows all the mains that have been lined to date and what still needs to be, or what's the basins that are?
They have done the 6 basins that were part of the consent order. That's what Hazen has all the data for. That's it.
That's all that's mapped.
Everything else, all the basins that the city's doing on their own, we keep track of that.
Okay, but there's not one total map that shows everything that's been lined to date?
I had to check, but we might have something to that effect. But I know the Hayes and the 6 basins, we have them all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you said you're somewhere around 60% lined of the sewer that needs it? Or am I way off with that? I thought last meeting we said that the total amount of sewer that's been lined that are in critical basins where I&I is an issue.
The most critical basins were the ones that were added to the consent order.
Consent
That's
order.
like the A7 basin here downtown. That's a big one. But there is more than, it's not 60% that has been lined.
You're better than that?
We still have ways to go.
Oh, okay, so you're not quite at 60%.
Not for the whole city.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's capacity to be gained by lining.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to continue lining these basins, and as time goes by, you need to go back and line the basin that you lined, I don't know how many years ago, and it's a continuous loop.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a,
Right.
Okay. Peter?
So, after that shorter summary of the consent order expenditure, you have the big spreadsheet of the individual projects. You have a project on the second page there for, I guess it's part of the GTL upgrades. There's a 14 million balance in it. It says effluent pump standby generator and admin building. So I have a feeling that there might have been a contract awarded for the standby generator, so that's the estimate. for
Peter, what
admin
project?
building.
What's the project?
It's project P12529.496 effluent pump standby generator and admin building, and there's appears to be a 14 million balance in it currently. So there's going to be a new admin building. What's the status of that?
Can I look at your?
Yeah, just come look over my shoulder. Hold on. Excellent. See it?
Space, right?
Yeah. Effluent. See what says effluent pump there?
Effluent pump.
Yeah. 14. There's 14 million balance.
Yeah, there is money for that. That has not. That's on GTL, right? Yeah, that's for. That has not started yet, but that project it has to be done. So right now it's in planning. That's why the 14 million shows there, but it has not. We haven't done the design.
But most of that presumably is for the building, right? Not the standby generator, standby pump.
No, this is for the pumps. It's a standby generator for the effluent pumps.
But that's all the 14 million, or it's part of that. It says admin building as well. Effluent pump standby generator and admin building.
There might be some of the upgrades on the admin building or GTL, but most of the money is for the effluent
Does that sound
standby
correct
generator.
to you, Ralph? About 14 million that would
For
be
standby
needed for that?
generator?
Yeah.
No, that does not sound reasonable.
That's what it was budgeted. I need to go back and look how was that budgeted and how they come up with that number.
They approved the
Is that your
stand,
question?
Yes, I suppose I was asking for an explanation of what that
What that-
expenditure is for, and so yeah, if you can look at that.
I can look at that.
If we get
It's-
lucky, it might free up some
get
money.
cold.
Yeah, it's to buy a standby generator for the pumps, for the effluent pumps. But I can go back and look at all the detail calculation of how that number was arrived.
But Omar, correct me if I'm wrong, the city commission has already approved the purchase or building of the standby generators for the effluent pumps. They did that last year.
For that, that was a temporary.
Oh, for a
generator.
temporary
That's a
one.
different
This
one.
is for the permanent
Yes.
standby generator.
Right, right.
Then that might be $14 million.
Barely here.
I know, it's, yeah, okay. Anything else, Peter? James, did we get everything you wanted? Did you have your hand up?
No, I need to be educated here. The last sheet that Jackie found difficult to read, water sewer fee report. What is this telling me? I don't know. I
Are you
can't
talking
figure.
about the impact fee, the last page, impact fees? Okay. Yeah, no, I got it right here. I can't read it. The impact fees are what we collect from the developers as they are building new buildings, water and sewer impact fees. Now, that money has to be used very specifically and only can be used on new capacity projects same with parks. When you pay a park impact fee, you can't use it like for maintenance and that kind of stuff. You have to use it for new capital construction. And these, which you can't see and can't read, are the projects that those funds are used for, have been used for.
And these are fees coming from developers.
Developers, these are the developer fees. So, when you get home and you want to blow it up and you can read it, you can see that they're only new capacity fees.
Okay.
A new pump station, for instance. Am I right, Omar?
Yes,
One of them
that
is
is
a
correct.
new pump station.
Okay,
yeah.
so I guess this will be a question I'll have when I get my lessons with the Public Works people, because it just says payment applied, like one place was $1,227 and another was $428,000 payment applied. And then there's somebody's name attached to it, and then FTL employee downtown Fort Lauderdale. I mean, there's no headings. That's why I'm not understanding what this is. So.
I agree. It's very difficult to understand.
Let me, we can.
See,
we
the
can put
problem
headings on-
I think is that they understand this very well. It's all in their head. And we've had this problem before.
That's good to know.
Trying to transfer all this knowledge into things that, lay people can understand. And
I can.
when you got to get it out to the public, it's even harder. It's even harder.
Hey, Igor.
I'll be educated on it.
Okay.
I just didn't.
Igor can probably explain. Hey, Igor. Hey, Igor.
All right.
We don't have to do it today. But.
You know,
Yeah, but we definitely have to do it.
But we can have Kim come and explain it again if you want, and for the
I don't know that the whole committee needs to do the impact fees again. We've done this
Okay,
before.
we can have
But
Kim talk to you.
definitely.
Okay,
Update on the details and explain.
right.
Sometime, whenever you.
Good.
Okay.
Have your people call my people. Right. Okay, very good. No, and this is good. Everybody needs to learn. Okay? So that actually takes us, I think, to the end of our meeting, unless there are other items that we want to talk about. Congratulations, everybody. We've been re-upped. And I'm looking forward to the first meeting, to the February meeting for the city manager to come. And I think we can probably keep our agenda pretty much toward what is the strategy for accessing these funds and how we're going to strategy. All right? Thank you very much, everybody.
One more question. I'm sorry, Marilyn. Just and maybe this is just a procedural thing I need because I'm new. The difference between having topics discussed in general discussion versus new business. What's the difference?
Okay. Anybody want to take that?
Jackie's shaking her head.
We're pretty informal on the general discussion.
Okay.
Until we get crazy, and then we dial it back.
Okay.
You,
all
you
right.
talk about what you want to talk about
Yeah.
in the general
Right.
session, and then when it comes to the
New business?
new business, it's pretty much specific until that.
Who brings up new business? Anybody?
Anybody can bring it up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
But
Just wear your seatbelt next time.
Chair,
Thank you, Omar.
maybe Chair, maybe the question is, which might help James, how do you get things onto our agenda that you think would be a good idea for the ITF to discuss?
You write me an email.
Yeah, or it comes up in general discussion.
Or if it comes up in general discussion, and right here, right now, we say, okay, that will be on,
We need to add
we
that.
just said right now, our number one item on the agenda for February is going to be talking with the city manager and the public works director about what is the strategy for going after some of these funds. And if you come up with something in the middle of the month, no, don't send me an email. Send me an email, okay? Simi will forward it to me, and then we'll work it out to put it on the agenda.
Actually, Simi is covering for Tracy on this meeting, so
Oh, okay.
I think this is her last one. She's been training Tracy, but Tracy's not in this week, so yeah, send it to Tracy. You can copy Simi too if you want.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank
Oh,
you.
I was-
Jackie's freezing.
Wait.
What?
Jackie's freezing. I don't know how to do this, so I need your help. But when we had the discussion about the bridge or the tunnel,
Right.
I went back into my archive to answer a question that Shane had. At 55 feet, 80% of the river traffic can clear without the bridge going up and down. At 25 feet, the bridge has to go up and down 95% of the time. Okay? Second thing, I'd like to show, if I can,
Yeah.
if you huddle around my computer, I want to show you a picture that's the basis of what Jackie brought up when it started.
Is that stuff on their webpage? Do they have a webpage where that stuff is?
I don't know.
I believe they do. I would like you guys, they do.
In the narrative, it describes the options, but it doesn't have any illustration.
I'm coming down to take a look.
You guys, I think I've got a PowerPoint that the mayor was using,
Right.
so maybe I'll send it to,
Send it to Tracy,
and then have
and then
everybody
have it
get
distributed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.